Here we are, parenting an intense child, how to make it better. I read dozens and dozens of entry forms as to why you may have signed up for this call here tonight. And I'll share a few of those in a little bit here. But first of all, I just wanted to welcome you to the call. I'm Samantha Moe, and I want to share a story with you so that we can all kind of get on the same page. Back in 2004, when I graduated from the University of Minnesota with my master's in communication disorders, I was thrilled to do important work. I got a job at a school for kids with autism in Southern California, and I was going to live within walking distance of the beach. I had a spot on the Los Angeles Rowing Club, and I had this great position at this school for kids with autism. They ranged in age from 3 to 22. My anthem of the time was the Beatles or John Lennon, "All You Need Is Love." So I was like, yes, I am going to use my gifts and I'm going to make a beautiful impact helping these kids develop social skills and make friends so that they have a happy childhood. Fast forward 6 months, I've got my hand on the doorknob of the third grade classroom and I sigh with dread because it was time to get Charlie. Now, Charlie was only 8 years old, but he was known in the school for his epic meltdowns. And for me, it was no different. I open the door, he sees me and looks away to pretend like he didn't see me. I see him slump down into his seat, and I used all my tools of persuasion to get him out of his seat without touching because he had some sensory challenges, out of the classroom door without a meltdown, and we're headed down the hallway. And I see my office 15 steps away, and hope is building. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and it happens. No, Charlie completely disappears from view, falls down to the floor, kicking and screaming those things you never want to hear children scream at you, especially in public. And as I look around at the teachers peering through the doorway, feeling embarrassed, feeling judged, I remember looking down at Charlie and thinking, I have no idea what to do here. So the sweat dripped down my back, and I just had this huge moment of self-doubt and questioning. Well, I'm 40 now, so I'm not embarrassed to say I just bribed him and skipped my lesson and brought him back to the classroom. But I still had to do that walk of shame down the long hallway back to my office. And when I got there, I turned off the light, I put my head in my hands, and I thought, maybe I chose the wrong job. I share this example because some of you are joining this call as a parent, and some of you are joining this call as a professional who works with intense kids. And if you've had a moment like that, you might have wondered some of the things I've wondered along the way. Am I doing something wrong? I should be better than the average person at this. I've spent a lot of time learning tools. People would say to me, your job must be so rewarding. And I thought, rewarding? I'm exhausted. I get home and all I want to do is lay on the couch. I have no room for anything else in my life. Yet here I was, having to figure it out with this kid, having to decide, am I going to fall in love with my job or walk away in despair? In that moment at my desk with my head in my hands, I heard my mother's voice. Now, my mother, Cheryl, raised us 5 kids, plus 5 daycare kids in the suburbs here in Minnesota. And her voice said, all children have gifts, Samantha. It is up to you to draw them out. And thank goodness I chose to believe her. We're 19 years later. You should know that journey led the overachieving, people-pleasing, type A, Enneagram 2 helper sides of my personality to do a lot of research, brain science, sensory integration, mindfulness, social emotional skills, play therapy, all sorts of sciences and brain stuff and psychology to understand what was the missing piece that I wasn't taught, even though I had learned a bunch of tools. And it boiled down to this. In order to help kids and to get through to them, we have to make sure their brain can be in a space that's calm and it feels safe. So how do we do that? How do we help a child feel calm and safe in their brain so that we don't have such intense, challenging behaviors and we can actually have a positive impact on their lives? Well, that's what caused me to create the Mad to Glad Blueprint, which are 8 tools that work for these kids. These kids doesn't just mean the kids with autism. It's for kids who are spirited or strong-willed, or they just tend to be emotionally intense. Families that have kids with sensory processing disorder, giftedness, mood disorders, anxiety, basically complicated family dynamics and diagnoses so that there can be more peace at home. I've worked with nearly 1,000 families, certified nearly 60 professionals as parent coaches and educators of my curriculum in the last 6 years. As parents, what baggage do we need to let go of in order to be as good as the specialists who work with our kids? It has to be practical, and it can't be theoretical. It can't be too complicated because nobody has time or energy for that. So if you haven't met me before, hello, this is some of the flavor of what we're going to be talking about tonight and how to make our family lives better. It's pretty real. If you'll type in the chat box, why is it important that you're here today? Parents walking on eggshells to avoid their kids' anger, a positive approach to the issue of big aggression rather than blame, shame, or anger. And then the normal stuff, tantrums, hitting, screaming, transitions. That's my bread and butter, so that makes sense. And there's a bunch of professionals here too. To give us a roadmap of what we're talking about today, this call on parenting an intense child is part of a monthly gathering that I offer for free because I like to connect with people and talk about fire in the brain and what happens if we misjudge that. How do we react as parents? How do we sometimes make it worse? And we need to know that so that we know how to make it better and we can feel confident and empowered moving forward. My goal for everybody is to help connect some dots. Why do kids act this way? What is them? What is me? What do I have influence over? What do I have to let go of control over? And then hopefully some next steps so you can make life easier. To get on the same page in our conversation, it's really important to understand what exactly is happening in children's brains. Their signals or their symptoms tell us, and there are a few commonalities. I want to make it really simple so that when Charlie's yelling, I hate you, I'm not like, ooh, how do I get him into self-regulation? I think, oh, there's fire in your brain. And that gives me the first step of what I need to do. If there is fire in kids' brain, which there is when there's intense behavior or big emotions, then the first thing we want to get really good at doing is calming the fire in the brain. This goes beyond just a certain diagnosis. These are signals that we're getting from kids' behaviors and emotions. And I call these kids intense brain kids. And we know that you're raising an intense brain kid or working with them if their signals are ruling the roost, being demanding and controlling, only doing things if it's their idea in the first place, or if the triggers are confusing, and then they have a big reaction. The thing about the reactions of intense brain kids is it's too high for the low significance of the situation. If you match their reaction, if you go into authoritarian parenting, you will obey me, this is how it is, it's not a big deal. What happens is your child doesn't back down, they have more pushback and it gets worse, which leads us to feel really confused. What are we supposed to do in this situation when our tools or the default parenting style doesn't work? So what does fire look like? Yelling, hitting, biting, throwing. Yeah, looking like little bullies, Glenda. I hear that. I'm sorry to laugh, but that's very descriptive. It feels like I imagine hell to be. Manipulation, passive aggressive, feels helpless, screaming, kid thinks they're the boss, huge anger. What does it feel like to parent in the face of intensity, in the face of fire? It's frustrating, draining, eggshells, heartbreaking. Yeah, all these things. Difficult, stressful for the whole family. Yeah, wanting to give up, like you never get to do anything. Yeah, because it's consuming. If it drains your energy, then there's not space to go on dates or socialize or your own hobbies. There's not leftover energy because it's being spent from all the stress chemistry, reacting and responding. Why can't things feel easier? I'm going to take us to a tender space on how we sometimes make these behaviors worse. And I do this for the greater good. So know that I will also lift us back out of this tender space again. How you think about behaviors influences how you act. How we think about behaviors will influence how we react, for better or for worse. And we will often use tools that we think are the best for the situation or the most relevant, because of course we want to do our best. But sometimes if you don't know this first concept that the whole Magic Lad blueprint is based on about fire in the brain, sometimes we misjudge the situation. Lacey's story is called When Gentle Parenting Backfires. Lacey is this wonderful mom of 2 kids. She has a strong-willed son and a toddler, and she was practicing a technique called empathy first. She said, I know to acknowledge my kiddo's emotions. I know to stay calm when he's upset. We don't do time outs. We do time in because I know that social emotional development is important. But the problem is when I create space for his feelings, he never shifts out of his feelings. So he has these emotions and these behaviors for 45 minutes. It turns into tantrums. I can't have my toddler in the same room with him because it's not safe. It's nothing like I imagined motherhood to be, even though I'm doing this gentle, kind, empathetic parenting approach. She said, I listened to some popular resources and they encourage me to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. But I just feel like, why am I angry? Why isn't this working? Why aren't behaviors calming down? And how come things aren't shifting? Why do I feel like I'm failing? It's the opposite of what I expected. She had one of the tools that's necessary for children's development, but the tool she was missing was that she gets to have a voice too, that she gets to have boundaries. What we worked on was knowing exactly how to set boundaries and family rules in a way that there wasn't pushback. She needed extra tools. And I never think parents are failing. I think that the tools are failing parents. And usually it's not even a bad tool. It's just that more tools are needed. Most families need 5 or 6 in order to really get things clicking for their family. Last week, I was talking to somebody. She said, I spend 10 hours a week managing behaviors, 5 hours a week researching what to do differently, processing with my spouse, or worrying and staying up at night, 2 hours a week on some sort of medical support or holistic visit, and 1 hour a week talking to my kids' school. That's 18 hours. We were talking about, what if you had 9 of those hours back? We're not really used to investing in ourselves as parents. We give and give and give. She gives all this time. She was spending $600 a month on co-pays and private services. And so we can say, so that's the price that you're paying for the behaviors. And what is the cost if you continue parenting in this way? What does it look like? How much influence could I have if I took 9 of those hours, 9 hours a week back to do something proactive? Because we all know you can practice something and get worse at it. Like I love cooking. And I taught my sister a Vietnamese recipe a couple months ago. And she's like, this recipe is terrible. And it was the exact same recipe I'd used online, but I've done the recipe a lot the correct way. Well, she put way too much fish sauce in it, and her 12-year-old twin boys didn't like it. It was the first time they had that. And she's like, should I just try again? I'm like, well, you can try again and you can do it wrong. And then you're just going to reinforce this bad recipe. So what about instead if we cook this together so that we can figure out how to put the right ingredients in, and you're reinforcing something that works for you instead of being disgusting. If you have an intense kid, we always make sure that you've got the recipe that helps the little scientist in the brain let go of control. What I love about 8 tools in parenting is that when you learn them, it's 1 tool a week. You learn from the bottom of the brain up. How do you calm fire in the brain as a parent? You learn how to implement it in your family, and you have time on each call to receive coaching and ask questions. So if you say something like, well, I try to stay calm, and then my kid's like, say something. Why aren't you talking to me? Like, we start troubleshooting through that so that you have a plan before you leave the call on how to implement the strategy so you can begin rewiring your relationship in your kiddo's brain. You come back the next week, you talk about what worked and what didn't. And 7 out of 10 usually say, it worked. Oh my gosh, teach me the next cool tool. That's awesome. I've heard about Calm. I practice it sometimes, but I forgot to do it for longer than 2 weeks. Okay, good. We'll keep layering it on together till you integrate it. 7 of you will be really excited. And then 2 out of 10, you'll come back and you'll say, it didn't work. Here's what happened. My child screamed back. They slammed the doors. It got more aggressive, and I will offer a customization and a tweak, just like we were talking about, because you might have a kid with a trauma background or some sensory challenges. And so we need to tweak it. It's good in theory, but then how do you actually get your kid to have self-control when you're a parent of 3 and you're cooking dinner and 2 of them are fighting and one of them's tattling? Well, an in theory tool isn't going to support you in that situation. So we want to make sure we customize it in order to make sure you know how to use it. And then 1 of you out of 10 is going to say, I didn't do it. The reason for that is always different. There can be an illness, a work thing. There can just be, I was too exhausted. And what we do is we break it down into a smaller step so that you can move forward successfully. There's somebody who just did this. They were saying, I want to change the morning and the nighttime routine in the next week. And then they're like, I can't do it. I'm too busy. And I said, okay, well, what's one area that's challenging? Well, our kid takes 45 minutes in the bathroom in the morning, so we're always rushing. Okay, what's he doing in the bathroom? Well, he has my phone. He's watching YouTube videos. Okay, great. So let's not change your whole morning routine. Let's just say that your child gets the phone after bathroom, breakfast, and teeth have been brushed, after the tasks have been done. Let's just change that one thing. So that's what I'm saying. The one person who might come back and say, I didn't do it, it might have been too big. So we want to just break it down to make sure you have the tool that you can work in a way that fits into your family rhythm. You already have a couple of tools that are good and working. I know that about you. I know that you've been working really hard and you're just trying to get the pieces to fit. So we're going to roll up our sleeves and figure out how to add the other ones in so that you can have relief more quickly. You don't have to navigate parenting alone. That I know you can do what it takes to bring more laughter and joy into your household, even when you have a spirited, strong-willed, or emotionally intense kid. My mom's statement really stuck with me. All kids have gifts, and it's up to you to draw them out. I think one of the greatest gifts you can give to your kid is saying, yeah, I know what the cost is of our relationship if we stay on this path. At the end of the day, the gift that you'll have given to your child is that they get to share their gifts with the world. So I often hear, my kid is charming, but they also are a master negotiator and it drives me nuts. So they'll get to be that leader or that lawyer or that salesperson because they'll have the skills of strong personality, but also be able to collaborate and get along well with others. When you see behavior start to improve, instead of asking other people like, well, what do you think we should do? What should I tell the teachers? What should I tell the therapist? If there's these big outburst behaviors, you'll know exactly what to tell the other helpers in your child's life. You've tested it and we've tweaked it and we modified it so that it works. If you need to reach out one-on-one because you have something lingering or private to talk about, I have appointments available on my calendar. You don't have to go it alone. Thank you, everybody who joined me. We are going to wrap up this portion of the call and stop recording so that we can do some special topics. Be in touch if you need anything. hello@samanthamo.com. Thanks, friends.